that they believe it to be true. Not only is it untrue, it's total rubbish, the sort of nonsense bandied round by those desperate to protect their own skins. And how about the outrageous claims by Bernard Ingham, who was Mrs Thatcher's press secretary, despite the fact that at this stage the death toll was still rising? He stated the cause was drunken fans, or in his words, Hillsborough wouldn't have happened if a mob clearly tanked up had not tried to force their way in. I know that there are people, maybe even some on the benches opposite, that actually believe this drivel, because they've been fed it for 2 decades. But I simply ask people to read the Taylor report. Alcohol was absolutely rejected as the cause of the disaster. Once again, it was a convenient excuse, an expedient opportunity to try to smear the fans and to abrogate responsibility. Liverpool supporters were no better or worse than any of the fans in football of that day. And I would say to fans of other teams that they should be saying, "There, but for the grace of God go we." Because a similar tragedy could have befell anyone at that time, and it certainly could have happened to anyone at that particular stadium, which didn't even have a valid safety certificate. The Taylor report concluded the great majority of fans were not drunk, or even the worst for drink. However, Ingham's view obviously influenced the Sheffield coroner, who inexplicably took blood alcohol levels from every victim, which included John Paul Gilhooly. John Paul was 10 years of age, just a child. Drink wasn't the cause, but was used to accuse and condemn, to impugn and reproach. It was, quite frankly, a con. The cause of the Hillsborough disaster is there for all to see in the Taylor report, which concluded that the police fundamentally lost control of the situation and did not demonstrate the leadership expected of senior officers, that the failure to cut off access to pens 3 and 4 was a blunder of the First Order, that safety procedures were inadequate and the ground was badly maintained and dangerous, that the fans were routinely treated with contempt by football, and that Liverpool fans had been the victims rather than the guilty party. His reports, published in August 89 and January 90, dismissed the allegations against Liverpool supporters for the disaster. Mr. Speaker, 22 years on, it's difficult to comprehend the enormity of the complete and utter breakdown of communication and inaction by those charged with our safety. It is impossible to understand at a human level why those within authority simply stood idly by, whilst ordinary football fans, without any emergency or medical training, organised themselves into stretcher burden squads to ferry stricken fans on advertising hoardings ripped from around the pitch, and who tried to give CPR to the stricken. This wasn't a war zone. No battle had been fought, but you wouldn't have guessed it by the scenes on the pitch. It was due to the Herculean efforts of ordinary fans, these same fans later besmirched by scandalous tabloid headlines, that the death toll wasn't even higher. Mr. Deputy Speaker, on the 20th anniversary of the disaster, I put on record my thanks to the ordinary people of Sheffield that opened their doors in the days before mobile phones to let fans call home to tell loved ones that they were safe. And tonight, both the leader and chief executive of Liverpool City Council send messages of support from the people of Liverpool to those in Sheffield that helped on that dreadful day. I am proud to be a Liverpudlian, Mr. Speaker. In the 22 years the families have fought their dignified campaign, I and the rest of Britain have watched as my great city has come together on this issue. Out of the darkness of the Hillsborough tragedy, an eternal flame of unity has emerged to mean that Liverpool is now synonymous with a unique kind of solidarity. Whether red or blue, we are Scousers all. But, Mr. Speaker, to those that attempt to perpetrate the myth that it was the fault of the fans, I will never tire of reminding them that it was the ordinary fans that were the real heroes in the day, not the villains. They reacted while those in authority froze. Mr. Deputy Speaker, my granddad used to regale me with vivid accounts of the 2 world wars that he fought in. And whilst he never glorified in war itself, he would explain to us as children his sense of loss for fallen comrades nearly half a century later. I didn't really understand that when I was growing up, but I do now. It doesn't matter how long it takes, we will never stop fighting for justice for the 96. A botched inquest, a flawed inquiry, a farcical review of evidence, and a system that worked against instead of for the families has left a bitter taste. An unsympathetic government, an unsatisfactory judicial process, and an unforgiving press has led observers to believe that an organised conspiracy was acting against the best interests of natural justice. We need the government to act, and we need this House to support the motion to ensure that there is no further backsliding on this issue. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Prime Minister quite rightly apologised for the previous government's mishandling of events when he responded to the findings of the Saville report. Today, I call on the Prime Minister to make a statement in this House and to apologise for the mistakes that were made and the mishandling of this whole tragedy on behalf of a previous government. I would also ask him to join me in pushing for the full disclosure of the senior police officer and the Conservative MP who allegedly leaked the story to the press, and to press for a front page banner headline in the Sun newspaper admitting that they lied in April 1989, just as Kenny Dalglish demanded 2 decades ago. We in Liverpool refer collectively to those lost at Hillsborough simply as the 96. But each of the 96 was an individual, a father, sister, brother, daughter, son, an irreplaceable person loved by others and with their own unique life story. The 96 trips off the tongue far too easily. It's not until you read out each individual name on the Hillsborough Memorial at Anfield that you realise just how long the list is. Parliament has never recorded their names in Hansard for posterity. Well, tonight I can at least put one wrong right. John Alfred Anderson, 62. Colin Mark Ashcroft, 19. James Gary Aspinall, 18. Kester Roger Marcus Ball, 16. Jared Bernard Patrick Barron, 67. Simon Bell, 17. Barry Sidney Bennett, 26. David John Benson, 22. David William Birtle, 22. Tony Bland, 22. Paul David Brady, 21. Andrew Mark Brooks, 26. Carl Brown, 18. David Stephen Brown, 25. Henry Thomas Burke, 47. Peter Andrew Burkett, 24. Paul William Carlisle, 19. Raymond Thomas Chapman, 50. Gary Christopher Church, 19. Joseph Clark, 29. Paul Clark, 18. Gary Collins, 22. Stephen Paul Copock, 20. Tracy Elizabeth Cox, 23. James Philip Delaney, 19. Christopher Barry Devonside, 18. Christopher Edwards, 29. Vincent Michael Fitzsimmons, 34. Thomas Stephen Fox, 21. John Paul Gilhooly, 10. Barry Glover, 27. Ian Thomas Glover, 20. Derek George Godwin, 24. Roy Harry Hamilton, 34. Philip Hammond, 14. Eric Hankin, 33. Gary Harrison, 27. Stephen Francis Harrison, 31. Peter Andrew Harrison, 15. David Hawley, 39. James Robert Hennessy, 29. Paul Anthony Hewitson, 26. Carl Darren Hewitt, 17. Nicholas Michael Hewitt, 16. Sarah Louise Hicks, 19. Victoria Jane Hicks, 15. Gordon Rodney Horn, 20. Arthur Horrocks, 41. Thomas Howard, 39. Thomas Anthony Howard, 14. Eric George Hughes, 42. Alan Johnson, 29. Christine Ann Jones, 27. Gary Philip Jones, 18. Richard Jones, 25. Nicholas Peter Jones, 27. Anthony Peter Kelly, 29. Michael David Kelly, 38. Carl David Lewis, 18. David William Mather, 19. Brian Christopher Matthews, 38. Francis Joseph McAllister, 27. John McBride, 18. Marion Hazel McCabe, 21. Joseph Daniel McCarthy, 21. Peter MacDonald, 21. Alan McGlone, 28. Keith McGrath, 17. Paul Brian Murray, 14. Lee Nichol, 14. Stephen Francis O'Neill, 17. Jonathan Owens, 18. William Roy Pemberton, 23. Carl William Rimmer, 21. David George Rimmer, 38. Graham John Roberts, 24. Stephen Joseph Robinson, 17. Henry Charles Rogers, 17. Colin Andrew Hugh William Sefton, 23. Inga Shaw, 38. Paula Ann Smith, 26. Adam Edward Spirit, 14. Philip John Steele, 15. David Leonard Thomas, 23. Patrick John Thompson, 35. Peter Reuben Thompson, 30. Stuart Paul William Thompson, 17. Peter Francis Tootle, 21. Christopher James Trainer, 26. Martin Kevin Trainer, 16. Kevin Tyrrell, 15. Colin Wafer, 19. Ian David Whelan, 19. Martin Kenneth Wild, 29. Kevin Daniel Williams, 15. Graham John Wright, 17. Rest in peace, justice for the 96.
The question is, as on the order paper, can I just say, could we have brevity from the front benches? There's a lot of